Hi, boys. Welcome to another Daddy Cast. We're doing world history, ancient history, and learning about the Sumerians. See up at the top, it's got their ziggurat. Here's about their crafts and trade. There was no stone, metal, or strong wood in Sumer, so all these things had to be brought in from other lands. In exchange, the Sumerians sold grain, wool, as well as the pots and metal objects they made in their workshops. So they must have had a little bit of metal, just not lots to build with. Oh, that they brought in from other places. Sumerian traders sailed along canals and rivers into the Persian Gulf and beyond. They traded with merchants from as far away as the Mediterranean coast in the west and the Indus Valley in the east. Metalwork. The Sumerians were skilled metal workers and made beautiful objects of gold, silver, and copper. Here's a gold dagger and sheath. Stone carving down here. Sculptors carved small stone statues of people praying. People believed that if they placed a statue in the temple, the statue would pray for them. You guys think that works? I don't think so. Although when Jesus was coming back in the triumphal entry to Jerusalem and all the people were shouting and praising him, the religious leaders said, "Stop your disciples from praising you." And Jesus said, "If they don't praise me, the very stones will cry out." But I don't think this is what Jesus meant. Here's a stone statue of a temple official. Pots and wheels. Sumer had plenty of clay for making pottery. Pots were shaped by hand until around 3500 BC when the potter's wheel was invented. Here it is. I think originally they would just spin it by hand. Nowadays they have electric potting wheels or ones that you can spin with your feet. Maybe they had to help each other. It says pots are shaped on a wheel. There are potters at work. Boys mix the clay with their feet. Okay, you know what our PE exercise is going to be today? We're going to go find clay in the creek and make you stomp on it. What do you think? Here, pots are baked hard in an oven called a kiln. All right, so it talks about the potter's wheel. It was invented. People soon realized that wheels could be attached to carts or chariots and be used for getting around. A donkey pulling a cart could carry 3 times as much as the donkey could carry on its back. Here's a wheel from a Sumerian chariot. It's kind of interesting. You can see how they had it pieced together from different boards, bound together. Here's the axle and the rim, also of wood in this picture. All right, let's look at the picture of the city and the merchants. In this picture, merchants are trading at a busy Sumerian market. This man is selling vegetables. There's a basket of grain on the donkey, rolls of cloth on the donkey. These merchants are setting off on a trading expedition. This man is selling fish. This trader has come from Syria with his donkeys with a jar of oil on the back. It sounds like a Bible story. Jars of oil, the widow and Elisha. Here are wine jars. This man, called a scribe, lists the goods as they are unloaded from the ships. This trader has brought back a cargo of gold, copper, ivory, and semi-precious stones. What do you think you could make with gold, copper, ivory, and semi-precious stones? Jewelry, a fancy goblet for a king. Here's stone floating down the river on wooden rafts. Wood from the mountains in the north, like maybe the cedars of Lebanon. Remember how Solomon bought cedars from Lebanon, had them floated down on the ocean? This trading ship has just come back from the Persian Gulf. Oh, I see. This is the sail, but this is the ship itself. All right, next page. I don't think I missed anything. Kings and war. Each city in Sumer was run by a group of noblemen. In times of war, they chose a leader who ruled until the war was over. As wars became more frequent, the war leaders ruled for longer periods of time. In the end, they became kings who ruled for life and handed down power to their sons. I think we've seen this one in like 3 or 4 different books. This mosaic shows Sumerian soldiers in battle. Sumerian soldier here is wearing a cloak and a helmet. This one, this is one of the enemy prisoners. He will be killed or sold as a slave. Here's a chariot, donkeys. This soldier is about to throw his spear. This is the charioteer. He drives the chariot. Here's the body of an enemy soldier. It's being run over by the horse. Royal tombs. The early kings and queens of the city of Ur were buried in large pits filled with amazing treasures. The tombs also contained the bodies of dozens of guards and servants who had taken poison and died to be with their rulers. I don't think I would have liked that. Here's here's a drawing of the floor plan of the tomb of Queen Shuduad of Ur. 10 ladies wearing golden headdresses who were there for her who had died. They took the poison. 2 oxen and 4 grooms to take care of the oxen. A wooden chest. A gaming board. Oh, she thought she needed to play games in the afterlife. A wooden sledge. 5 guards. Here's Queen Shuduad. A stone tomb chamber for her. Gold, silver, and copper bowls. Here's a statue of Sargon of Akkad, or a drawing of him. Sargon came from Akkad, the land just north of Sumer. He was a skilled soldier and had control of a huge army. He conquered the whole of Sumer and Akkad, creating the world's first empire. And we know them as the Akkadians. Here it is. The Akkadian Empire lasted nearly 200 years until it was destroyed by a tribe called the Gutians. There are some Gutian tribesmen. The end of Sumer. The king of Ur won back the Sumerians' land, and for a short time he ruled all of Sumer and Akkad. Around 2000 BC, Sumer was invaded by a tribe known as the Amorites. The land split up into many small states and later became part of the Babylonian Empire. All right, here's some important dates. 5000 BC, farmers settle in Sumer. 3500 BC, the wheel is invented and the first cities are built. 3300 BC, picture writing is invented. 3100 BC, cuneiform writing is used. 2500 BC, the royal tombs are built at Ur. 2350 to 2150 BC, Sumer is part of the Akkadian Empire. 2100 BC, the king of Ur rules Sumer and Akkad. The ziggurat at Ur is built. 2000 BC, the Amorites invade. All right, now you can open up your Life in Ancient Mesopotamia book to page 4 and 5 if you want to look through the pictures while we have it on screen. Let's see, I need to fix my picture. It's taking too much space up right now. Make it small, small, small. I'm still there. All right, so between the rivers, this is about Mesopotamia. The remains of ancient Mesopotamia lie between the banks of the Tigris and Euphrates rivers in modern-day Iraq. For thousands of years, people living nomadic lifestyles roamed the region in search of food. By 6000 BC, agriculture, or the raising of crops and livestock for food, had developed. Over time, small farming settlements grew into the world's first cities. The birth of civilization. Historians refer to ancient Mesopotamia as the birthplace of civilization. The first civilization developed in the southern region of Mesopotamia called Sumer. Here, villages grew into cities and cities grew into city-states. And that's what they mean, as a side note, by civilization. Oh, it's going to tell us over here. What is a civilization? Let's see. Over here, what is a civilization? Most historians agree a civilization is a group of people that share common languages, some form of writing, advanced technology and science, and systems of government and religion. Okay, that's not the answer I thought they were going to give. Civilization also is related to a city because a city in Latin, for example, is called civitas. So the civilization is the fact that people moved from just being little villages into cities and big cities and city-states. All right, let's keep going from here. By about 2800 BC, most Sumerians lived in a city-state. The city-state consisted of a central city, often protected by a defensive wall, and surrounding towns and villages that depended on the city for leadership, assistance, and protection. The center of attention. The permanent settlement of southern Mesopotamia became, or the permanent settlements of southern Mesopotamia became a center of agriculture and trade, both for its citizens, people that live in the cities, and for nomadic peoples from neighboring regions. Groups of people invaded and conquered Mesopotamia, while others settled there peacefully and slowly gained power over time. The history of ancient Mesopotamia includes many different groups of people, conflicts, and cultural developments, such as the inventions of the wheel and writing. The name Mesopotamia comes from a Greek word that means between two rivers. Look at this, I don't know, ancient carving. To defend themselves against invaders, the civilizations of Mesopotamia developed tools of war and styles of warfare, such as wheeled chariots, bronze and iron weapons, and protective army boots for soldiers. Here we have examples of pottery and the wheel. The seed plow was first used around 4500 BC and allowed plowing and seeding to be done at the same time. Ancient writing in 3000 BC. Large stepped temples with shrines on top called ziggurats built maybe between 2500 and 2000 BC. Here's the Akkadian period. The Babylonian period, 1500 BC to 1000 BC. Here's the Ishtar gates that guarded the ancient walled city of Babylon. The Assyrian period, the Persian invasion. All right, from mountains to marshes. The boundaries of Mesopotamia were marked by the two great rivers of the region, the Tigris and the Euphrates, and the coast of the Persian Gulf down here. It's part of the, I think it's an outreach of the Indian Ocean. To the north and the east lay the Zagros Mountains and the Taurus Mountains, mountain ranges. In the southwest, the Arabian Desert bordered the rich floodplains of the west bank of the Euphrates River. The southernmost region of Mesopotamia was a flat plain with marshes near the head of the Persian Gulf. The north. In the mountainous north, winters were cold and wet. Rain and snow provided water for a variety of different plants to grow. On the mountainsides, forests of oak, pine, cedar, and juniper trees gave food and shelter for wild sheep, goats, wolves, bears, hyenas, and leopards. The Tigris and Euphrates emptied into the Persian Gulf 5,000 years ago. Today, the rivers meet to form a third river, the Shat al-Arab. The floodplain is much wider today than it was in ancient times. Floodplains of the south. Further south, on the plain where the ancient rivers met the Persian Gulf, there was very little rain. Summer temperatures reached as high as 125 degrees Fahrenheit. Plants such as reeds and date palms grew close to rivers and streams. Further inland, the soil was dry and sandy. Many wild animals, including lions, leopards, wild cattle, boar, deer, gazelle, ostriches, vultures, and eagles, lived in the southernmost part of Mesopotamia. Foothills and grasslands. South of the mountain lay foothills and grassy plains. The grasslands experienced hot, dry summers that allowed for a long growing season. Less rain and snow fell in the plains than in the mountains, and hot winds blew in from southern deserts in the summer. Farmers grew grain such as wheat and barley and grazed sheep, goats, pigs, and oxen on the grassy plains. In the northwestern Zagros, the mountains are snow-capped. Life-giving floods. The Tigris and Euphrates rivers were fed by tributaries that carried silt and soil down from the mountains. So tributaries are the little streams and little rivers that feed into a big river. You can see they would be flowing out of the mountain snowmelt into the big Tigris and Euphrates rivers. They carried silt, that's kind of dirt that's good for plants, and soil down from the mountains. In the spring, melting snow and heavy rains added large volumes of water to the rivers. The fast flowing rivers often overflowed their banks, flooding the plains of southern Mesopotamia. The annual floods left behind the minerals washed down from the mountains, making the soil rich and fertile. Farmers of Mesopotamia depended on the rich soil to grow barley, wheat, and other crops. The need for water. Farmers developed ways to water. Oh, kind of dropped my mouse there. Let's go back. A long ways. Farmers developed ways to water crops before they were drowned by spring flood. They used irrigation systems to carry water away from the rivers to ditches and canals where water was dammed and used to water fields during the growing season. Irrigation allowed for more crops to be grown and sold, adding to the wealth of the southern region. The Great Empires. Mesopotamia is the name given to the region where many different peoples made their homes, including the Sumerians, the Akkadians, and the Assyrians. Farming communities. In southern Mesopotamia, the earliest settlements were part of the Ubaid culture. They created small farming villages and towns and built the first temples in Mesopotamia. By 4500 BC, Ubaid culture had spread to the north, where the farming villages of the Halaf culture already existed. People in the northern villages raised animals, grew grains, hunted wild animals, and gathered plants for food. The Sumerians. By 3800 BC, the people known as Sumerians ruled southern Mesopotamia. Large settlements in Sumer grew into cities, which eventually became city-states. Some well-known Sumerian city-states were Ur, Lagash, and Uruk. Ur was originally an Ubaid village, but its location close to the Euphrates River made the city one of the most important trading centers by about 2500 BC. The Akkadians. The land of Akkad was north of Sumer. The Akkadians conquered Sumer in 2340 BC and united all of southern Mesopotamia under one rule. The capital city of the kingdom was Agade. By about 2125 BC, fighting between city-states led to the collapse of Akkad. Sumerians from the southern city of Ur defeated the Akkadians and ruled southern Mesopotamia again. Rise of Babylon. By 2000 BC, the Amorites, nomads from the west, had begun moving into the cities of Sumer. In time, the Amorites became kings of most cities in southern Mesopotamia, including Babylon. The Hittites, warriors from the north, conquered Babylon in 1595 BC. The Hittites left Babylon, and it fell under the rule of the Kassites, a group of nomadic people who had slowly settled throughout southern Mesopotamia. The city of Babylon was ruled by the Kassites until about 1170 BC. Sargon the Great led the Akkadian armies against Sumer. He was one of many great warriors from Mesopotamian cultures. The Assyrians. Assyria lay between Akkad and the Taurus Mountains. To the south were the more powerful city-states of Mesopotamia. Around 1100 BC, the Assyrians began to send military expeditions west to control important trade routes. By 824 BC, the Assyrians had conquered all of Mesopotamia and had built up a large army that used iron weapons and metal armor. To keep control of the lands, they conquered the Assyrian kings, ordered the people to relocate to different areas to prevent them from revolting against the Assyrian rule. Great palaces decorated with carved stone statues and reliefs. A relief is where it sticks out and looks a little bit 3D, but it's not a full statue in the round. So, great palaces decorated with carved stone statues and reliefs like this one, showing military battles, were built during the Assyrian Empire. In this carved stone relief, an Assyrian king named Asarhaddon leads the conquered by nose rings to new lands. I wonder if that's kind of what happened to Daniel and his friends. Let's see. I guess that was in Assyria, that was Babylon. The birth of kings. Oh, let's see. Let's read about the Babylonians. The kings of Assyria were not entirely successful in preventing revolts. By 614 BC, different groups of people, including the Chaldeans in the south and the Medes to the east, had united to fight against the Assyrian rule. Together, these groups, who came to be called the Babylonians, established a new Babylonian empire led by King Nabopolassar. The city of Babylon was rebuilt, but the new empire was weakened by rulers who fought one another for power. Here is a stone statue who shows Gudea, an ancient Sumerian king. The birth of kings. As Sumerian civilization grew, leaders became increasingly more important. Groups of men called councils of elders were the first to rule city-states. The council appointed temporary leaders in times of crisis. A leader called an ensi was appointed to deal with agricultural problems. A lugal was chosen to lead the city's army during times of war. As rivalries worsened among city-states, the powers of these leaders grew. By 2800 BC, the Lugals had become chief priests, lawmakers, and military commanders. All right, here we have the next page, city-states. Each city-state was independent from the others with its own leaders, laws, and holidays. Different city-states ruled over others at various times. Wars and agreements were made between city-states. You guys remember reading in 2 Kings recently, it was talking about, the king of Samaria was receiving tribute from Edom, which is, probably another land with its own city-states. But then Edom said, we're not going to send money anymore to Samaria, and Samaria went and fought. That's like one city-state ruling over another. Okay, the city of Babylon. Babylon began as a small village in the kingdoms of Sumer and Akkad. The name Babylon comes from the word Bab Ilum, or Babel, meaning gate of God. Under the Amorite kings, Babylon was a center of learning and scholarship. It became one of the greatest cities in ancient Mesopotamia. All right, item number 1 right here. See all this stuff back there? People lived in houses made of mud brick. 2, people entered the city through the gates. In Babylon, there were 8 main gates that surrounded the city. This looks like the Isis gate that we saw in a previous picture. In Babylon, the main street was called Procession Street. A procession is like a parade. Many city-states were protected by walls to keep out invaders. So here's some examples of the walls. Those are seriously, that must have taken a lot of work to build that. Think about it. Kings in city-states built elaborate palaces and temples. In Babylon, the Hanging Gardens, a series of lush gardens, were ordered to be built by King Nebuchadnezzar II. Look at that. Even a waterfall, maybe? Hard to believe, but it could be true. Do you think water got put up by a pump, or did they have a bunch of slaves with jars of water running in a continuous line to fill it up? I don't really know. All right, the largest temples also include a ziggurat. That's up here on the top, dedicated to the main god or goddess of the city. The main god of the ancient city of Babylon was called Marduk. Cities of Assyria. Nineveh, a city in the north, was the Assyrian capital. The wall that surrounded the city had 15 main gates, each guarded by stone bull statues. Early records say that Nineveh was a beautiful city with parks, a botanical garden, and a zoo. I wonder if Jonah visited the zoo when he was preaching to Nineveh. Actually, at the end of the book of Jonah, after Jonah has been mad that God is going to forgive them because they repented, God says that it's not right for Jonah to be angry because Nineveh is a great city with many people who don't know their right hand from their left. That means they don't know right from wrong. And also many animals. Maybe some of those animals were in the zoo. All right, that is the end of our Daddy Cast, and I hope you had an interesting time learning about the Sumerians, the Akkadians, the Assyrians, the Babylonians, and all that. Talk to you guys later.